Okay.
Better turn my phone off.
Should we wait till Zach? Zach, are you still good? Okay, perfect. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today and being flexible as we are doing a Zoom meeting, and we are recording this and we will send it out to the whole community of all of our members. My name is Josie Malloy. I'm the president and CEO for the Grants Pass in Josephine County Chamber of Commerce. And then we also have Josh Pollock. He is a board member of the chamber. So the format today, we will be giving each candidate 3 minutes for an introduction, and then we'll go into the questions. So let's go ahead, and we're gonna start by alphabetical order of last name. So we're gonna start with introductions with Michelle Binker.
Oh, and just as a head up, that's for, we'll give 3 minutes, and then we also have a sign here that you can kind of sort of read, but if you see this, that's the 30-second sign. So we'll flash that for you, hopefully right around 30 seconds. So.
And then once it's ending, I will just raise my cell phone so you know that your time is up. And please do accommodate us with the time limits so that we'll get through this in a timely manner. All right.
Do you have the information for Kate? She was going to call in.
Oh, it's on the calendar invite if
Okay.
she just goes to that link.
All right.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So Michelle, your 3 minutes starts now.
Excellent. Thank you, Josie. Good afternoon, and thank you to the Grants Pass and Josephine County Chamber for hosting this forum. And also thank you to the business community for supporting your chamber. I'm glad of this opportunity to represent House District 3 and to apply my experience, knowledge, and native intelligence to your service. I'm a 24-year resident of the Illinois Valley. I have a diverse work history and many years work experience in the private sector. I've been a writer, reporter, publisher, and photographer. I've worked on campaigns and in marketing, advertising, and sales. I've worked in security, and I've been a lab technician at a gold mine. I've also worked delivery, food service, and retail. I hold our small business owners and employers in high esteem because I understand the sacrifices made to stay afloat and make payroll even under normal circumstances. You know, obviously we're in a severely challenging time right now, and without jobs, goods, and services that businesses provide, recovery is going to be seriously hampered. I know how vital a healthy business climate is to a strong economy and a stable society. Here in Josephine County, I've taken on many roles in local organizations while building community ties that helped make my time with the state representative's office more productive and strengthen the community's access and relationship to the office. I'm a charter member and past president of the Rotary Club of Illinois Valley, a graduate of the Ford Institute for Leadership Development, Illinois Valley Cohort Number 1, and a senior fellow with the American Leadership Forum of Oregon. Additionally, I've served on the boards and in membership of numerous hyperlocal organizations, including the Dome School, the Kirby Museum, the Kirby Union High School Memorial Park Association, the Shining Stars, Illinois Valley Chamber of Commerce, and Illinois Valley Community Development Organization. I've worked for 10 years in local news media, and I'm familiar with our community, its achievements, and its struggles. I've been 6 years at state legislature working with our elected officials at all levels. I have an awareness of the legislative process, the interested parties, and the political tripwires. I know the subject matter experts and who to reach out to when I need information quickly. I'm a parent, and my sons are graduates of Illinois Valley High School. One is studying at RCC, and the other has been accepted to SOU this fall. I'm motivated to build and maintain a healthy community in the hope that they and one day their children will find in Josephine County, Oregon, an opportune place to live, work, and raise a family as I have. It will be an absolute privilege to represent you in House District 3 up in Salem. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much. So now we're going to move on to Zach Menard. Is that how you say your last name?
Yeah, Menard.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, you have 3 minutes.
All right, so my name is Zach Menard. I was born and raised in rural Josephine County. I currently have the endorsements of Oregon Right to Life, Senator Bear Trigger, and the support from Senator Boquist, Oregon Firearms Federation, and Oregon Hunters Alliance. I graduated from Hidden Valley High School, and 2 weeks after graduating, I enlisted in the Army as an infantryman. 2 weeks after, graduating, I was on a plane headed to my first duty station, Fort Campbell, Kentucky, home of the 101st Airborne. From there, I deployed to Afghanistan, where our mission set was to help locals in the Afghan army gain control of their communities. However, the Taliban had a strong influence in the area, and it quickly became a combat deployment. After my deployment, I hadn't achieved all the goals that I'd wanted to, so I re-enlisted for another 4 years, and then I moved to the 25th Infantry Division in Hawaii, where I served for another 4 years and then got out of the Army with an honorable discharge. While in the Army, I attained the rank of Staff Sergeant, graduated from Ranger School, Airborne School, and numerous other leadership courses. I also earned the Combat Infantryman Badge and the Expert Infantry Badge, and I served my final year as a platoon sergeant. I returned home to Grants Pass in January 2019 and worked as a foreman at Legacy Pools and a receptionist at the local Veterans Center while pursuing a degree in political science. My family, they've owned small businesses in the construction industry for many generations here in the valley. So I grew up, around the construction industry, and I, see the hardships and struggles that they have as a small business in this community with the overtaxation and regulation. It wasn't long after I came home before I became frightened with the future of our state. Our community is fighting an uphill battle with nearly every bill that is being sent to legislature. The urban-rural divide, government overreach, overtaxation, and overregulation are threatening our community and way of life. I want to show my generation that complaining does nothing. We must take action and fight for our conservative values and rights, or we're going to lose them. I entered this position with the same motivation and determination that I had in the Army and the same mission that we had in Afghanistan. We must unite and gain control of our community. I'm running in the Republican primary for House District 3, and I believe that with my convictions, I'm the strongest Republican candidate in this race. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. All right, Commissioner Lily Morgan. Oh, we can't hear you, Lily. You'll need to unmute yourself. There we go.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to visit with you today, even if we can't be with each other in person. I want to thank all of you that are working to provide essential services in our communities, our first responders, medical personnel, and all who are trying to keep us going. For those who have closed their doors for now, I know this has been a sacrifice and an extremely difficult time for our community and our families. My prayer is that you will all be healthy and we will return to work soon. Many of you know me for my service in this community, but I want to take a moment to reintroduce myself. My name is Lily Morgan, and I am running in the Republican primary for state representative for Oregon House District 3. For the last 20 years, I have served our community as a 911 dispatcher, reserve sheriff's deputy, parole officer, city councilor, and county commissioner. During that time, I have gained a reputation for honesty, integrity, and being the voice of the people and speaking up for what is important to us in Josephine County. I am running to be your voice in a legislature controlled by Portland liberals who tend to think of the rest of Oregon as their park, a pretty place that only exists for their recreation. I firmly disagree with that notion. We have a right to an economy, to responsibly use our natural resources as we have for years to provide good jobs, and we have a right to govern ourselves with as little interference from Salem as possible. An example of what I'm talking about is cap and trade. This destructive bill would destroy rural jobs for a negligible environmental benefit. As your commissioner, I have actively opposed this bill and testified to the legislature on behalf of Josephine County in 2019 and this year. My active role earned me Timber Unity's endorsement, which I am proud to have. Rural Oregon is outnumbered in the legislature, and that's why my leadership experience matters in this race. I am the only candidate in the race that has held elective office. I am the only candidate who has dealt with public budgets, policy issues, and has had to make tough decisions in the public eye. Especially in this time of crisis, we need someone representing us who can hit the ground running and defend and promote our interests effectively. We need someone who represents our values, and I do. As your representative, I will fight to protect your right to vote on issues that impact your checkbook. your rights to legally own a gun and your Second Amendment rights, your rights to earn a good living, your right to run your small business without crushing taxes and red tape, your right to medical freedom and educational choices for your kids. And as a 100% pro-life candidate endorsed by Oregon Right to Life, I'll fight to protect the lives of the unborn. I believe that government that governs best governs least, and I want to put that principle to effect in Salem. Experience matters now more than ever, and I want to serve in the Oregon legislature because we need to stop government getting in the way and start helping people in this time of crisis. I am Lily Morgan, and I'm running for state representative for District 3, and I would be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to Max Whittington.
Whittington, yes.
All right, go ahead. Your 3 minutes are starting now.
Great. First of all, I want to thank the Chamber for putting this on. I know the circumstances are a little bit unprecedented, so thanks for making accommodations. My name is Max Whittington, and I'm running to be state representative for the simple reason that I think that I can be the most effective and skilled advocate for the people of District 3 in the state legislature. I'm an attorney here in Grants Pass, and I've built my entire career on advocating for the small businesses and the individuals of Southern Oregon. What that means is that every day I am defending the people of this district's rights, their interests, and I'm doing that in a adversarial governmental system that's imperfect, and that's a lot like the legislature, frankly, especially if you're a Republican. Now, I am a conservative Republican, and certainly I will stand with the Republican caucus, but I also understand that the reality is we're going to be in the minority, and that means that we have to legislate from the minority, and that means having some influence over the legislation that's passed, even if it's not the best legislation in the world, because the real choice that we have is, are we going to have some influence over the legislation that's going to be passed, or are we going to have no influence over the legislation that's going to be passed? And if I'm elected every day, I'm going to be doing everything I can to protect the interests of the people of District 3. Now, as well as being an attorney, I'm also a small business owner in this community and an employer. So I understand firsthand the pressures and the concerns that small businesses have in this community, especially now. Under these, again, unprecedented circumstances where there's a voluntary shutdown of the economy and people are out of work. We're not going to have the luxury in this next session of just walking out and ending it without passing anything, because the people of this district are really hurting. So we have to do what's necessary. We have to find some middle ground to actually help people. That's the role of the legislature. And if I'm elected, I'll do everything in my power to do that. I am a constitutionalist, and I think that's an important perspective to also bring to the legislature. I had some nationwide news when I sued a number of gun retailers for refusing to sell guns to individuals based on their age, and I'll continue those conservative principles. I'm also endorsed by Oregon Right to Life PAC. I'm not a career politician, and I'm not running because I need a job. I'm running because I think I can help the people of this district, and I feel a moral duty to do that. Thank you.
Great, thank you, everyone. We are now going to move into the questions, and we have 9 total questions. And I'm going to turn it over to Josh to ask the first question.
Okay. We're going to start with Mr. Menard. And the first question is, as a member of the Oregon legislature, what would be your 3 highest priorities?
Well, the gross receipt tax, you know, I don't really like that one at all. So they tax the gross income. There's a lot of small businesses and corporations here in our valley that you know, for example, grocery stores. They may sell millions of dollars in merchandise, but when it comes down to their profit margins, it's 1 to 10%. Now we're taking away another 0.5% away from that, so it's kind of makes it hard on the business. Another one would be the rent control. Here in Southern Oregon, we struggle with our housing economy and market. just because there aren't enough houses available for our population. And when the rent control was passed, it didn't make it any easier for homeowners to rent out their private properties, or made them not want to. And then also the regulations with private property. I spoke to a miner the other day, and he has a massive rock quarry that he can't access due to regulations. He's been fighting this for 10 years and spent millions of dollars. You know, we have the ability to export our natural resources and use them, but due to regulations, we cannot. So those are the three areas that concern me.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Morgan, same question to you. What would be your 3 top priorities if you are elected to the legislature? And you're on mute.
I thought I clicked it. Thank you. I believe that we need to continue to stand up for public safety, our seniors and our veterans, but fires continue to be a concern to us. And so the Governor's Wildfire Council gave recommendations to the legislature, and they're going to be formulating decisions based on those recommendations that would be important to be a part of the discussion and help regulate. For instance, restricting development in the wildland urban interface would be highly negative for Josephine County. Almost the entire county is it in a wildland urban interface. And so being able to speak up for how that impacts us. I will absolutely fight to reverse the corporate activity tax, which is the gross receipts tax, and the cap and trade. But as far as things to introduce, I believe we need complete land use reform. Our land use laws went into effect in the 80s, and they have not done anything but increase regulations on our land use and restricted what we can do, which is causing the housing crisis that we're having right now with not having enough inventory and ability to build. In addition, I believe we need to continue to address the PERS reform issues. There are several changes that have happened to address the current employees and the impacts, but we need a legislative decision that will allow our school districts, our public safety departments to continue to provide services without being having to lay off people just to pay for the PERS and responsibilities. So we need a fix with PERS, our wildfire responses, and land use.
Thank you. Mr. Whittington, your top 3 priorities.
Thank you. Well, I'll just come right out and say it. I think that the number one issue in this next session is going to be the economic fallout from this coronavirus. And the real debate that's going to happen is between the metro area Democrats in the Willamette Valley, who are going to want any kind of economic recovery bill to focus on those metro areas, and Republicans are going to have to influence that legislation and make sure that our rural industries are also fairly represented. And that means rural industry, small town businesses, tradesmen, restaurants, bars, and rural tourism. Now, I can tell you that there's going to be legislation passed on this. Again, the question is, what kind of influence are we going to have, and are the people of District 3 going to be fairly represented? So that's number one. Number two, we have a housing crisis in Southern Oregon, and this is a solvable problem. Ms. Morgan is right that we need to ease zoning and land use regulations to increase building. We also need to change the landlord-tenant laws, and this is something that I see day in and day out in the courts. The landlord-tenant laws drive small landlords out of the market. It's the rent control, but more than that, it's the fact that they can't evict tenants without very extreme cause that they have to prove in court. And that means that every time they want to evict someone, it costs them $5,000 to $10,000. That's not fair to landlords. It reduces liquidity of the market, and it makes the housing crisis worse for everybody. Finally, I would staunchly protect gun rights. I think that the legislature has tried to pass some unconstitutional laws that are in violation of the Supreme Court's decision in DC v. Heller, and I'll do everything in my power to prevent that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Baker, you're the last one.
I thank you, Josh. Gosh, I can't even begin to argue with any of the issues that my competitors brought up. Housing obviously is huge, and we're not going to get a stable workforce or attract stable workforce to our community unless we have housing options for them. The CAT tax, business regulation, occupational licensure, land use, PERS, gun rights, these are all going to hop up and get us when we get back to the legislature in the spring. I have to side with Max, though. You know, the economic fallout from this situation is going to be dire, and we don't know exactly what the next year or two are going to bring until we get a glimpse of our first economic forecast is going to come out May 20th, and that'll give us some idea of what the revenue picture is going to be looking like then. But as for my priorities, you know, I want to revisit the CAT. This appalling gross receipts tax should never have been passed, especially after voters rejected pretty much the same proposal in 2016. Our mainstream businesses are in the middle of a cash flow crisis, and we've heard numerous requests to delay or repeal the CAT. I don't see any legislative will to repeal the CAT, though there is talk of raising the threshold so that fewer businesses are directly impacted straight away. My inclination is to work to try to repeal the top line tax altogether and find a less destructive way of funding our education. Let's see. On top of that, you know, our business regulation, the regulatory environment does hamper growth. It hampers innovation. And I think we need to be a bit more flexible and ratchet back some of those regulations to allow our businesses to expand, especially when we're facing this dire economic slowdown. And on top of that, occupational licensure is severely onerous to people who wanted to get into the business for themselves. I would like to see all of our boards ratchet back some of their occupational licensure requirements where it doesn't impact health and safety. But in this moment right here, what we're seeing is a movement towards reciprocity for licensure for nurse practitioners and other healthcare workers. So if you're licensed in Missouri, you can come work in Oregon because we might need you in that moment. I think that we should hang on to those places where licensure is relaxed or reciprocity is expanded so that we can grow our economy and attract talent from the nationwide.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Next question.
All right, for the next question, and you do have 2 minutes for this one as well, and we'll begin with Commissioner Morgan. What steps would you advocate for the state to take to improve the business climate in Josephine County?
Well, right now, everybody is going to be facing a revenue issue. And so the sooner that we can find a safe way to get businesses back up and running while keeping our community safe is an important part of that. As of this afternoon, we have a conference call with the governor asking of what those steps and those timelines will be. I know the legislature is going to be tempted to raise taxes, raise every opportunity to increase revenues to try to provide services back to the community. But right now, we actually need to lower the taxes to our business community so that they can get more money into operating the businesses so that we can get the economy moving. And if people are put back to work, they're making money, they spend that money in their community, that in turn increases the income tax revenues back to the state that will bring the revenues back to the state. So the key is for them to, first and foremost, let's get rid of this gross activities tax, the gross receipts tax, and if raise the standard or whatever, but it has to be such that we can get the money back in the arms of our business community and get the businesses up and running straight away so that we can get this system moving again. So lowering the gross receipts tax and not increasing any taxes at this time.
Great, thank you. All right, we are gonna move on to Max Whittington. Did you need me to repeat the question, or are you good?
If you could repeat it, please.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. What steps would you advocate for the state to take to improve the business climate in Josephine County?
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, well, Lily is right that there is going to be a major revenue problem this year. And look, this economic downturn is not like in 2008. This wasn't anybody's fault. It was a natural disaster. And so the people in this district are hurting, and it's through no fault of their own. What we need to do is we need to lower regulation to encourage new investment, especially in building houses, which will also ease the housing crisis. We do need to defend our citizens against increased taxes. We also, I think, need to focus on reopening this economy as quickly as possible. I mean, I think the governor is taking maybe too much liberty. Obviously, we have to protect people that are particularly at danger, but restaurants, bars, other industries in this district are going to be really hurt. And I understand there are federal programs that are going to provide, business loans at little or no cost interest, but there are going to be gaps in that, and we're going to have the responsibility of filling in those gaps to help those people. To get them back on their feet, and frankly, to get them back into the economy that they had built for themselves up until this crisis.
All right, great, thank you. All right, Michelle Binker.
Hi. Straight away, I'd have to say that the state needs to resist the urge to raise taxes. When our Democrat colleagues in Salem take a look at the revenue forecast, they're going to be sad because they're well accustomed to having plenty of funding to play with, to be fast and loose with. And when things tighten up around them, the first thing that they're going to want to do is raise taxes. We know that our businesses, though even those that aren't subject to the CAT this year, will be subject to a minimum wage increase, which is set to take effect this summer. If we can delay or stop that phased implementation of the minimum wage increases, that's one way that we can help employers retain their employees and stay in business. The other thing that we really ought to do or not do is stop threatening to join the carbon market. Pardon me. Got it. Hang up my phone. Okay. Yeah, we ought to stop threatening to take part in the carbon market, the carbon cap and trade legislation. Every time that comes around, it terrifies people who might consider investing in Oregon. And it terrifies people who live and work here because they know that their food and fuel prices are going to go up immediately. So the sooner we can stop talking about entering that market, the better off we're going to be. I know that the train may have left the station on that one already, because between issuing her first and second executive orders on coronavirus this year, Governor Brown issued an executive order which directed state agencies to go ahead and reduce and regulate greenhouse gas emissions and consider climate change on planning, budget, investment, and policy making. So these things are already rolling. We have a report due to the legislature on May 15th from DEQ, DLCD, Department of Agriculture, Energy, Fish and Wildlife, Forestry, and Transportation. We're well on our way to creating a carbon neutral Oregon, so long as we are mindful not to increase the costs on everyday people and businesses. I think we have a good shot at recovering ourselves economically.
All right, thank you. And we're gonna move on to Zach Menard.
All right, so once again, as addressed with the first question, private property rights and restrictive regulations do not foster a good business climate here in our area. They push away new businesses that want to come to the area, and they stop old businesses from growing and restrict their productivity. Not only that, within the past 5 years, there's been a lot of taxes that have passed that also are burdensome on small businesses. Employers sick pay, families sick pay, and predictive scheduling. While I agree with these fundamentally, these are additional taxes that are burdensome on businesses, and I believe that we need to have additional tax incentives to help our local economy and small businesses. I also agree with Michelle that additional taxes moving forward are not going to be beneficial to our climate. And I think we need to do everything we can to protect our community from that. So.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Do you want to do 1 minute for these, or should we do 2 more, or 2 minutes?
We can probably move into 1 minute.
Okay.
What do you think?
All right, we're gonna change it up just a little bit. We're gonna go to 1 minute responses on the next 7 questions. So I just wanna let you guys know. So you'll see that yellow thing pop up a little sooner. So the next question here is, and it will be for Mr. Whittington. What are the steps you would take to address the fallout from COVID-19?
Absolutely. First of all, what I want to say about COVID-19, I know people out there are scared. From a constitutional perspective, I question whether or not the governor has the legal authority under either the First Amendment or the Oregon Constitution, Article 1, Section 26, to prevent or give an indefinite suspension for the right to congregate. So number one, lifting that as soon as possible is something we have to do. Now, as responsible adults, we also have to take common sense precautions to help the health of our community. And I would encourage everyone to do that. But we need to get the economy going again as quickly as possible. Second of all, as I already said, there are going to be gaps in whatever federal legislation is passed to help small businesses, and we need to fill in those gaps. If I'm elected, I'll do everything in my power to do just that.
Thank you so much. Ms. Binker.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I also cherish our rights to freely associate and assemble, and I wouldn't give those up without a fight. But what we don't have and what we need is accurate and timely information. And given accurate and timely information, a prudent person would choose to stay home, wash their hands more often, wear a mask, or a prudent business person could take appropriate steps to lessen employees' and customers' exposure. We need to open up testing, make it as widely available as people want. It needs to be timely. And as soon as we actually have a baseline for infectious rates around here, then we will have information that makes sense and that gives us an accurate way of judging our own risk and the risk to those people around us. Definitely, I would like for us to relax our congregate rules and let people make up their own mind.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Maynard, go ahead.
Well, I think Oregon's done a very good job at mitigating the spread of this virus. And, you know, I think we should take a look at what businesses are essential and start additional businesses, you know, that right now are not, and start opening those up with the proper procedures safely. And one big area, you know, would be the hospitals. Currently, we're pushing off a lot of procedures, and we don't have the numbers that they had projected because we have done such a good job at mitigating the spread. So hospitals opening up and allowing routine or procedures that are a priority to happen would be a good start with getting our economy going again.
All right, thank you so much. And finally, Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you. I know we are still in the middle of it, but we are 6 days in Josephine County without an additional case of COVID-19, which I'm grateful for. We are having talks about what's the right timing to open up industries, and should that be by specific areas like all medical, dental, any specific services, or by regions in our rural areas that can respond accordingly. We do need to allow more testing and monitoring of the hospital's responses so we do not overwhelm the system. We need to shore up our priorities by using the federal allocations to help fund programs without raising taxes, and to provide grants to businesses so that they can cover the losses and get back going as soon as possible.
Thank you so much.
All right, moving on to the next question, and we'll be starting with Michelle Binker, and you'll have a minute to answer this question as well. Are there bills or ideas that you would support to help incentivize or develop workforce housing in our county? Michelle?
Sorry, I was writing the question
That's
down and giving
okay.
it a little bit of thought there. I would support a relaxed zoning efforts that encourage residential opportunities in practically every zone, minus industrial to begin with. I would like to see more, I would just simply like to see more opportunity for people to make a home nearer to where they live, whether that's downtown in a retail environment upstairs from that, or whether that's around the corner from their farm. I would like to see enhanced opportunities for people to live near where they work.
All right, great, thank you. All right, Zach Menard.
You're on mute.
So it's currently extremely expensive to pull permits and get buildings started on new construction. You know, I don't have the answer to that solution right now, but it hinders a lot of new development here within our local economy. And I think that there does need to be incentives that bring additional builders and allow the construction economy to flourish here so that we do have more housing and movement within that economy. So
Great, thank you. All right, Commissioner Morgan.
Absolutely would support any incentivization to support workforce housing in Josephine County. This can be done through a waiving of development fees at the city municipality or the construction fees at the county, or a property tax incentive if it was related to a certain percentage of jobs that would be created by the workforce housing. I would support high density workforce housing that would allow transitional times and to try to ease the regulations around community density so that you can build around Williams, Murphy, Merlin, some of those rural townships, and also to allow ADUs in rural areas.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, Max Whittington.
Thank you. And I agree with the other candidates. There has to be an easing of zoning regulations. There should be government incentives for building worker housing. But another thing that nobody else has talked about is we need a change in the landlord-tenant law, because that's the quickest thing we can do to ensure there's more housing in this county right now. It doesn't have to be built. We just have to encourage small landlords to once again rent out their extra space that they have to people that are in need. So I would amend those laws, and I would also change zoning regulation to again encourage new development and construction.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Maynard, we're going to start with you. What is your position on the bill known as cap and trade? If you're looking for a specific reference, we'd say SB 1530 from 2020.
well, cap and trade, what it really is, it's a fossil fuel tax that is proven not to work. So I believe it's been passed in 3 places, Australia, Canada, and California, and it's been repealed in 2 of those places. It still exists in California, but I don't know if that's a model that we want to follow. It's extremely detrimental to our community with small businesses and all the equipment upgrades that we would have to, you know, buy and basically get rid of all of our old equipment. So I do not support cap and trade whatsoever, and that's my position on it.
Commissioner Morgan.
I'm strongly opposed to cap and trade. And the reason why is because Oregon is already very low on our carbon production and environmental impacts. And unfortunately, this bill would not increase that. I believe that we as Oregonians want to be environmentally responsible, but we also need to be able to provide jobs. I testified against cap and trade when the legislator first brought this up in 2019, and I testified earlier this year against it as well. We have too many jobs that rely on fuels and diesel fuels to transport. It would increase the cost of all of our economy without having an impact on the environmental requirements. Not to mention, it would only benefit the wealthiest of businesses who can buy out their tax carbon credits and be outside of the requirements of the bill. And so this would hurt rural, smaller businesses greater than other areas. And so rural would pay the impacts.
Thank you. Mr. Whittington.
Thank you. Yeah, of course, I'm against cap and trade, just like everybody else on this panel, I would say. What cap and trade is it's an unfair tax, especially on rural economies, for the purpose of Democrat virtue signaling, frankly. It doesn't really help the environment. The environmental impact that Oregon's industry has is negligible, especially when the Chinese are burning tons of dirty coal every hour of the day. So it doesn't actually do what the Democrats want, and it destroys our rural economy. I'm against it. I think the legislature did the right thing by walking out in the last session, but look, we're not going to have that luxury in this next session. So we need to ensure that whatever legislation is passed, it protects the rural economies first and foremost. Thank you.
And finally, Ms. Baker.
Thank you. You know, this entire package was sold to voters and to the legislature as a means of reducing our impact on the environment. As Max said, Democrat virtue signaling. That's precisely what it was. You know, we can always do something to lessen our effects on the environment, but I'm a natural resource advocate. For mining, logging, fishing, farming, ranching, these are the foundations of a strong economy in our nation. But I understand too, we have a duty to care for our creation and apply our ingenuity and mitigate those inevitable impacts on the natural environment. But this scheme, this discredited scheme to sell pollution privileges to the highest bidder isn't the route we want to take. And especially when information about buyers and sellers is outside of public purview. It's exempt from public records requests, and the pool of money that would have been created by this new tax is controlled exclusively by the executive branch and outside of budgetary oversight. So there's no way I could get behind this proposal. It absolutely stinks.
Thank you.
All right, we are moving into question 6, and we're going to start with Commissioner Morgan. You have 1 minute. What would you do to prevent more increases in taxes that impact businesses in our communities?
To advocate against it and vote against it. But the other thing would be to engage with our local Chamber of Commerce and other businesses to rally the troops of sorts to fight that and to advocate and to testify, to submit written testimony, to be able to come in person and testify, to contact as many legislators as possible to not vote for additional taxes. Right now, Oregon has become one of the least friendly states when it comes to businesses, and we need to turn some regulations. We need to continue to recruit more pro-business, less tax candidates to run and get elected across the state, and work as a whole with the business community to tell how these taxes would increase. So first you vote against it, then you recruit to have more people to vote against it, and rally the troops to fight against any additional taxes.
Great, thank you. All right, Max Whittington.
Thank you. And yeah, of course I would vote against increased taxes. But frankly, the Democrats sometimes have the numbers to push through that legislation anyways. So one of the things I would advocate for is increased local rule. And that means that maybe the legislature passes an act with the ability for certain counties to opt out or to have lesser impact. That's kind of a piecemeal solution, but it's sometimes all that we can do to protect local economies. I would also like to see the legislature, give some of these issues over to the control of counties themselves to make decisions.
Great, thank you. All right, Michelle Binker.
I do like the idea of giving us more local control when some of these policies come down, and we've seen that with the minimum wage increases, with pumping your own gas, with the way that cannabis laws were differentially applied around the state. We do have the flexibility to provide that local control to some extent, or at least mitigate the speed with which some of these changes take place locally. That said, there's there's nothing that can beat getting out ahead of this thing, rallying the troops, like Lily said, bringing facts and data to the legislature, and attempting to get folks to realize that just because a person runs $1 million or $2 million business doesn't mean that they're rolling in dough. There's a real misconception out there about what a business person is, and what kind of resources they have at their disposal, or rather at the state's disposal. We need to educate those folks up in Salem, or at least get more people who are business oriented involved in the process.
Great, thank you. All right, Zach Menard.
Well, I am a Republican, so I'm fiscally conservative, but so I would vote no on new taxes. And, you know, as I see it, Oregon doesn't have a revenue problem. We don't need more taxes or additional taxes. We have a spending problem, and a lot of the taxes that we get now are misappropriated funds. And I believe the best thing that we can do has already been brought up, and that's spread awareness and push back against any new taxes.
Great, thank you.
So, Mr. Whittington, this question is going to start with you. And what do you believe should be the key funding investments the state of Oregon should make in Southern Oregon?
Yeah, the key funding investments have to be in small business. I mean, Southern Oregon is an underutilized resource, frankly. We have a lot to offer the rest of the state, and it's growing. There are people coming into Southern Oregon, especially from California, but from all over the country. And this community is going to continue to grow. The government needs to be there to support that growth and to make sure it happens in a fair, free market way. So I would support any type of legislation that supports increased small business or investment in Southern Oregon, in the utilization of our resources and our tourism industry and other related legislation.
Great, thank you. Ms. Baker.
That's Mrs. actually, Josh.
Mrs.
I'm
Baker,
borrowing
sorry.
his name from my husband. Thank you. Thanks. So what's become glaringly apparent in the past month or so is the need to bolster broadband access across the state, and you know, for Southern Oregon, it would make our region that much more viable and attractive to businesses and others if the telework, telehealth, and remote education opportunities were opened up through broadband infrastructure investments. I think that will tip the scales for us.
Great, thank you. Mr. Maynard.
I believe, you know, one of the best things that can happen is for the state to get out of our small businesses' way, you know, so that they have the ability to operate and bring additional jobs and income and, you know, supply our local economy. Another issue that we have here locally is that we don't have any bigger corporations or businesses, you know, that have any job retainability for people that are going off to school and coming back. You know, they move out of the area because there's no incentive to stay. And it is the taxes and regulations that's keeping the bigger businesses out of our state or local area.
Thank you. And finally, Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you. So some of the key funding investments in Southern Oregon, I agree wholeheartedly that broadband is one of the things that can help reduce the costs in our other areas for both education and health community. In the state of Oregon right now, the biggest investment of our resources is in human services, both mental health treatment, public health, and senior services, and that can potentially be reduced in cost if we can have the equipment to provide those services back through broadband. We need to invest in fuel reductions in our forests and get workers back into our forests so that we're not spending our summers filled with smoke and fighting fires. But in that firefighting effort, we have to put the fires out immediately, and the investment to continue to keep those fires small and out as soon as possible is necessary. We need to invest continually into our public safety and veterans programs, any workforce development really, from veterans returning from service to students going through school and getting trained in the trades. Is that the phone? I'm sorry, I can't see it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Thank you.
All right, we are moving on to question 8, and we're going to start with Michelle Binker. You have a minute to answer. In this very divisive political climate, what are your thoughts on how to best work with members of the other party? Oh, you're on mute.
Nope. You're on mute.
No longer muted. Very good. So as has been noted oftentimes before, and as I've seen, about 80% of the bills that make it to the floor for a vote pass with large or near unanimous margins. So there are plenty of opportunities to work together, work across the aisle, as it were, to do good things for the state of Oregon. One of the things that I'm doing currently is that I've been involved with the foundational conversations around developing a Southern Oregon caucus, a regional caucus that will move in unison on issues that are important to our region or against issues that are going to be detrimental to our region. So I'm already laying the groundwork for those conversations and for working across the aisle with my Democrat colleagues.
Great, thank you. All right, Zach Menard.
Well, with us being the minority, you know, it's going to be hard to get up there and get what we want done. But, you know, with my experience in the military, you work with other leaders and you don't always see eye to eye, you know, to accomplish a mission, but there's common ground that can be made, you know, and at the end of the day, that's what has to get done. And we have to accomplish the mission.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you. As a county commissioner, the position is nonpartisan, and so I've had to work with people on both sides of many topics. And honestly, where it comes down to is people wanting to be heard and wanting somebody to be able to listen to them. We have worked on several projects with both our Democratic and Republican representatives and senators in trying to get our voice heard on what's impacting us in Josephine County, and I will continue to do that. There's opportunities for co-sponsorship to build relationship, and I agree with working as a region. We currently have regional phone calls regarding the COVID with our representatives and senators and commissioners from Coos, Curry, Douglas, and Josephine counties, and that is bipartisan. And we are talking as a region and what needs to happen for us. So we do speak up for how things affect us locally and rurally. And that, I think, stands out very importantly at this time.
Great, thank you. All right. Max Whittington.
Yeah, thank you. I consider myself a pragmatist. And again, the reality is the Democrats have the numbers in the legislature and we have to work with them. That means we're not going to get everything we want, but we can still have an influence on legislation. And we have to find middle ground to actually help the people of this district, because that's the job ultimately. And, you know, partisanship is fine, but if we can't get anything passed with the legislature, we can't actually help anyone. So what I do every day is negotiate against people with adversarial interest to mine. And more often than not, we come to a solution, we settle, and everybody's better off. I'll bring those same skills to the legislature and ensure that there are bipartisan bills passed by the House.
Thank you.
Okay, we're down to our last question, and this one we'll start with Mr. Maynard. As a legislator, what steps would you take to reduce wildfires and smoke in our county?
Well, you see, we don't manage our forests properly. 75% of the land is owned by the federal government. I think 30,000 acres is owned by the county. So one thing we could do that would create jobs is proper forest management. You know, we could then, in a responsible manner, not go out and clear cut, but get rid of, you know, the old growth and promote new growth. That way we won't have the fires that just, you know, destroy the entire mountain.
Commissioner Morgan.
The first step in reducing wildfire and smoke in the county is putting the fires out when they start. And ODF currently has the contract for private lands, state lands, and BLM. And they have a policy that fire is a nuisance, and 98% of the time is the goal to keep the fires less than 10 acres. So getting the fires out as soon as possible, and then working the forest year round to reduce the fuels. There are good neighbor authority and good stewardship projects, but those don't bring the revenues back to pay for our local services. And so trying to find a balance of how you reduce those fuels and getting work going you have to partner with harvest and the forest restoration projects. So you have the fuels thinning and the harvest projects going both at the same time to get the forest back to a healthy place that we can continue to move forward. And then of course, in the wintertime is a time that you can do those low burning fuels reduction processes well when the risk of fire is less.
Perfect. Mr. Whittington.
Yeah, thank you. This is a local issue, but it's also a federal issue because, of course, the vast majority of the woodlands are controlled by the federal government. When I was in law school, I actually clerked for the BLM, and so I know firsthand how slow the federal bureaucracy works on these sort of things. So the first thing is we need to partner with the federal bureaucracy and get them off their butts to actually help us with this issue. We also need to, as Lily said, put these fires out quickly. We need to support local firefighters and make sure that they're ready to go when they're needed. And then finally, I would support increased logging on federal lands, because if we don't log these lands, they're going to burn. And I would rather see it go to a useful purpose, both for economic and material needs, than to go up in smoke.
And Mrs. Baker.
It's not possible for me to argue with anything that the other folks have said here. Number one is federal forest policy, getting people back to work in the woods, bringing those trees in to increase revenue, or at least doing the thinning projects to reduce wildfire hazards, but having people working in the woods such that if and when fire breaks out, folks are there and ready to respond. I can't argue with ODF's policies at all. They do a stellar job of leaping on fire and taking care of it right now. That said, I wish our federal partners were as responsive and would treat fire as a nuisance instead of a thing to be herded around inside of a large box to do their management work for them. That doesn't work for Southern Oregon, and we've seen the results of damaging smoke on our tourism and on our recreational opportunities. And I think we just need to get people back in the woods, working the woods, and responding to fires in a timely manner.
Well, thank you very much. That's the end of our prepared questions. We are going to give everyone a 3-minute close. And I believe we are on to Commissioner Morgan, correct? So Commissioner Morgan, the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
Thank you. I just want to thank Chamber board members and membership. You guys have been such a partner during this COVID-19 and situation, and that you've helped the whole community and not just your membership is very admirable. Thank you. To the other candidates, thank you for putting your name in the race, to put yourself out there and be vulnerable for running for elected office. I appreciate your commitment to this community. For the voters of Josephine County, I would ask that you remember the experience that I bring to this race as having been elected to serve as a city councilor and county commissioner. I have worked hard to hear you and to represent where you come from in Josephine County. We don't always make the right decisions, but I do try to learn from those decisions and to continue on that path towards speaking up for what's important to us. I am pro-life. I will defend the Second Amendment and the entire Constitution. I am pro-jobs and will support our small businesses in every way possible. I believe in a right to educational choice and not increasing state taxes, keeping the local control where we can to better provide services. I consider myself blessed to have been born and raised in Josephine County. It's a beautiful place to be and to live. We are a community that looks out for each other, and we take pride in our living values such as faith and love of country. Having served in elected office, I know that it's not ribbon cuttings and parades. It's about long hours reading and understanding the details of budgets and bills. You have to make tough decisions, and in a time of crisis, you have to put your needs on hold to take care of others. To be effective in the minority in the legislature requires the ability to ask tough questions and insist on honest answers that make sense, and to work constructively with others, even when they disagree with you. That's what I have been doing as a county commissioner, and that's what I'll do as your state representative. My name is Lily Morgan. I am running for the Republican primary for state representative in Oregon House District 3. I would be honored to earn your vote to be our next state representative for House District 3, and I welcome you to visit my website, votelilymorgan.com, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for being a part of our wonderful community. And Chamber, thank you again for hosting.
Thank you. Mr. Whittington.
Yeah, first of all, I would just like to, again, thank the Chamber, especially under these circumstances. I know it's difficult, so I appreciate it. Anybody out there who's watching, I will tell you that I know people are scared, but this is going to pass, and together we're going to move forward. And I would urge you to elect somebody to the legislature who has the skills to advocate on your behalf and to help you in your lives. If I'm elected, my only goal will be to help the people of District 3 improve their own lives. I don't have political ambitions beyond helping the people of the community that I'm going to live in for the rest of my life. And so that's why I'm running. If you elect me, you get a small business owner, an attorney, a constitutionalist, somebody that understands the economic and legal side, and somebody who's practical and understands how to actually pass legislation. I do have a degree in political science as well as a law degree, and I'm a lifelong Oregonian living in rural Western Oregon. I will just say that the people of this district need help. It's a great place to live, but we have problems, and those are solvable problems. And with your backing, I think I can make some headway in solving those. So if you want to learn more about me, please visit my website, which is www.votemaxwhittington.com. Again, I'm Max Whittington. I'm a Republican running for House District 3. I hope that I can earn your vote.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Binker.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you once again to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event. It's really important that we get the word out in this curious time when candidates aren't able to host town halls or get out and greet folks. This is really important, and I appreciate you making this opportunity available to us. My husband and I chose to move here. I didn't grow up in Josephine County, but we chose to buy a home, make a life, raise our kids, and live here. And I'm prepared to do the job on behalf of the residents of House District 3 from day one. I'll provide honest and responsive representation, and I'm going to go back to Salem and push back against this perception that we're a community that doesn't know how to do for itself or is unwilling to do for itself. I know that we are an innovative and resourceful people, and everything that I do is going to be about improving the lives or helping the folks in Josephine County improve their own lives. Mine is a write-in campaign, and for that, you know, I'm really grateful to have been included in this forum today. Not everyone is taking the time to learn about all of the candidates who are available to be voted on. So I appreciate the Chamber once again for reaching out and making that available to me. I'm a write-in candidate because I hadn't been planning to do this either. I really had anticipated getting Representative Wilson reelected to office, but once he made the decision not to run again, I took a look around the community and saw who might be lining up to take part. And I thought, you know, it's really incumbent upon me at this moment to step up and give folks the opportunity to take advantage of the knowledge and experience that I've earned while working with our elected representatives up in Salem. I'm going to take that and do the best job of representing you I will be responsive to you as I have been as staff to your elected representatives. We will answer the phone, we will answer your emails, and we will get you the answers that you need, or we will let you know exactly what's going on and how. My name is Michelle Binker, Michellebinker, and I'm asking for Republicans to write me in on the primary ballot this May. You can learn more at michellebinker.com, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And last 3-minute closing is Mr. Maynard.
So first off, I want to remind everybody that experience matters, and the experience that I gained in the 8 years that I served in the military cannot be duplicated or replicated. And the experience that I do lack can be attained. And I've surrounded myself with a great campaign team and mentorship that's provided me the ability to gain experience. And I want to thank the Chamber and Josie and Josh, you know, for this opportunity here. I also want to remind everybody that, you know, we discussed it, that we as Republicans are the minority. And during the last session, only one more Republican was needed to side with the Democrats in order for cap and trade to become law. All right. We can't let that happen. And we all talked about, you know, common ground, making common ground and fighting for something. But, you know, I won't only vote no. I will stand up and do anything possible to fight for our rural rights and conservative values. So thank you once again for having us all here.
Okay. Well, I just want to personally say thank you so much to all of you for being willing to run. We really appreciate the opportunity here, and we really appreciate that this is probably an election unlike any of our lifetimes. So thank you all, and good luck in the upcoming election.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time, and we will have this recording out to you and the public this week. So thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. I'm
There we
gonna
go.
stop this.
Cool. All right. And thank you for like, you know, that. See ya.